So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So, we are gathering for a truly special moment, the 10th year anniversary of Bitcoin Unlimited, a full decade. 10 years of debates, breakthroughs, late night code pushes, friendships, and a shared belief that we can build something together. Tonight, or for some of you this morning, I have the pleasure of welcoming Solex, Sigpig, and Peter Rising, three people whose fingerprints are all over the history of BU and the evolution that came after it. I also want to acknowledge two people who can't be here with us this evening. Andrew Stone, who might join, not sure about it, and Peter Chipper. Their contributions to BU and to Nexa are immense, and their spirit of innovation is very much part of the story we are celebrating tonight. I also want to thank everyone else from BU and you who are following us for all these years. Tonight isn't just a space. It's a friend reminiscing, reflecting on the journey, and sharing a vision for what comes next. So let's begin. Before BU existed, before the scaling debates, before any of the work, there was a moment where each of you first discovered Bitcoin. That first spark is often deeply personal and sets the tone for everything that follows. So my question here for you is, how did you first hear about crypto or Bitcoin? Where were you? What was the situation? And did it immediately click for you? Or did it take some time before you understood what it could become? So whoever wants to go first, feel free.
Sure, I'll go first. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, let's see. I heard about Bitcoin a long time ago, probably back in 2010 or something. But every time I heard about it, I would see, or most of the times, I would see those pictures of those Koskias coins, or however you pronounce it, those gold coins with a B on it. So I never looked into it, but I thought that's what a Bitcoin was. I thought they mailed you this little coin with a B on it, and maybe there was like a database on some computer to trade them like Pokemon chips or something. So I thought they were just kind of a silly little novelty, and I never looked into it. But I remember they were like a couple dollars at the time, and then in around March of 2013, there was when the Cyprus in the country of Cyprus, those bank bail-ins happened, and I remember that relit some interest in Bitcoin. I remember hearing on the radio that Bitcoin hit a new all-time high of like $30 US, and I thought to myself, well, how could those silly little coins, stick around for so long and keep going up in price? Maybe there's something to it. So I decided that I remember the exact moment. I was driving in my car when I heard it on the radio. I said, I'm going to spend a day researching this Bitcoin thing. Went home, opened my computer, found the Satoshi white paper, read it, realized those little uh, gold coins have really nothing to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a breakthrough in computer science. Satoshi found a way to create a digital scarcity, and at that moment, I knew this was the future of money. And from that moment, I was hooked on Bitcoin.
That's really amazing to hear. Anybody else wants to share their experience?
Yeah, I'll jump in just now. The first time I heard about it was when WikiLeaks had its credit cards pulled, and I don't know exactly what the date was, sometimes late 2010, early 2011. And I read the comment about how they were accepting a currency that couldn't be blocked. But I didn't investigate that at the time. And it was only much later there was a November-December 2012 issue of Linux Format magazine. I was in a shop looking at Christmas presents at that year, and I saw the magazine, and I was rushed for time, so I didn't even buy it. It had an orange Bitcoin on the cover, so I made a mental note to go back home and research that, which I did. And I did something a little bit different from what Peter did. I went to the bitcoin.it website instead to actually see how it all worked. And it took obviously a few days to go through it all, but it was quite clear to me how it worked, and immediately the potential for the future of money. I could see it was the future of money as well straight away. So I got interested from that point on, and it's been my passion ever since. So that's my history.
Really amazing. I think that's really interesting. Now, do you want to say something, Stickpick?
Yeah. Well, like almost everybody um, that get in touch with Bitcoin at first, we dismissed or didn't pay enough attention, and for whatever reason, along the way, a few months later or weeks, something trigger your attention again, and you put a little bit more energy into study the thing, and once you put that energy in, uh, you go down a rabbit hole, and we are still there. Like,
Indeed.
yeah, I'm not good at putting historical facts in chronological order. I'm not good at ordering what happened to me. Even my memory is not as good as it would like to. But I read about Bitcoin on Arca News, which is the website where um, it is linked to Y Combinator, which is an incubator for startup back in 2011, 12, don't remember. And it was weird. The name was the weirder thing for me, because I've never managed to get why they choose, or she choose that name. But apart from that, like I said, I read a bit and I thought, interesting, but I didn't grasp about the decentralization, what actually was Bitcoin, what problem was it solving, and then, like I said, I don't recall what was the trigger, but a few months later, I found myself reading the Bitcoin white paper, and I'm still down that path.
What?
That's
Yeah. I think you made some good points, Sick Big. Once Bitcoin grabs someone's attention enough for them to go down that rabbit hole, they seem to never come out. So what I would like to know is there even a single person in history who's gone down the rabbit hole far enough to understand Bitcoin and the problem it solves, and comes out saying this is stupid or this will never work? It seems that once you understand it, you're convinced that, well, maybe it's not guaranteed to work, but it's got a pretty darn good chance.
I think that I'm probably not as objective as the average Joe, but I can say that I don't know anybody that once it grasped the kernel of Bitcoin, it was able to dismiss it, saying, okay, nothing major. It's business as usual. I don't know anybody that did that. I knew people that got distracted or got bored or sick of the dynamic that developed around Bitcoin in the ecosystem, and maybe got interested in other solution to the same problem. But once you have the clear state, you have this problem that you need to solve, which is money for the world without third parties intermediate the transaction. Like, once you realize that this is, like, as I would say, it is a necessary condition for all the freedoms that people would have. I mean, if you are not able to transact economically without permission from third parties, you're not free to do anything. Like, you're you're a serf. You're not a free man.
Yeah. I remember it was one night with an old university friend of mine before the days of Bitcoin. He made the comment. He's like, how money is moving more digital. We're all using plastic cards, and he says, with paper money or coins, you can meet someone no matter where you are in the world, and you can give them money directly. but there's no way to do that with your phone
Yeah.
or digitally. It's weird because he's like, isn't it weird how if it's not physical, every transaction has to go through like a bank or something. He said
Hmm.
that just seems wrong to me. But this was before we even knew about Bitcoin, and I remember thinking
Yeah.
that's really weird. But I guess it's an unsolvable problem because how can you make this digital
Yeah.
thing scarce? But Satoshi
Uh,
solved that problem.
yeah. He did. He did. He did indeed.
I
It
will
was.
just,
Yeah.
sorry,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I will just add that's a crucial point, that Bitcoin and blockchain technology has come along at exactly the right moment in history to preserve people's personal freedoms, because we were heading pell-mell into a future where there would be centralized control over financial transactions. And also, what's happened in the last 150 years is that most people used to live on the land where they could feed for themselves. So it wasn't quite so important to financially transact. But nowadays, people can't live for more than 48 hours without transacting, because how do we get food? How do we get shelter? How do we do anything?
Definitely.
So it's now extremely critical to life to be able to, modern life at any rate, to be able to transact.
Right. So
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 it's, yeah.
imagine a future without the Bitcoin escape hatch. Eventually physical money would become basically obsolete in the modern world, and then
Mhm.
every transaction would be mediated by some third party. So, like that's a recipe for this dystopian future.
Mhm.
We're very thankful of Satoshi, and like you said, it really was at the right exact point in time to preserve human freedom.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah, yeah. It's really good to hear all three of you remembering those stories. Some of them I heard, some of them I have not. I'm really pleased to have heard all of them. I hope to be able to hear all of them one day. So even though like this is a great place to begin. So the first encounter with Bitcoin is always such a personal moment. And hearing how it clicked for all of you really sets the tone for everything that came afterward. So I think that every great collaboration starts with that first conversation. Two or three people realizing they think alike, see the same problems, or share the same stubbornness to fix things. So how did you all meet? Do you remember your first talks? When did it become clear that you shared the same values and goals, enough to create something together and eventually found Bitcoin only?
Oh, it was not for me at least. It was not a precise point in time. It was a process. We gathered all the good, all like all the nerds do at times online. We used to spend a lot of time, hours, reading posts on a forum which is still
Bitcoin
on,
talk.
yeah, bitcointalk.org, and in particular there were a thread which was gold collapsing, Bitcoin up was the title of the thread, and there were a lot of people there, among them all the people that managed to set up the process that bring us Bitcoin Unlimited. But there were other that was like, that had the same urge, had the same problems to solve, had the same vision of what was happening to us back then and what is currently happening now. So it was like, a process that the more that you get used to these people online that you don't even know if they are a man or a woman or whatever, and then uh, after a while you realize that you have a very strong bond, so that when someone proposed to put, uh, 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 a lot of effort at because this is what it was back then, without any, guarantee of a return of investment of our time, and then it feels natural to say yes, like to say, yeah, we have to do something. We have to, enough talking. We have to put up put out something out there that could, help people to solve the problem that we see in the way that we thought was the best.
It's funny you said we were all basically anonymous and nobody knew if you were a man or a woman or a dog. But I do think about that because and we never talked about it. Like I never said where I was from or whether it was a boy or a girl. I never said what race I am. We didn't talk about that stuff at all. We just talked about ideas.
We don't care.
We didn't care. But I think it is interesting that we all ended up being guys.
This was like telling, if you will. But it is a tangent that could lead us very far apart from where we are headed tonight. But yes, it was, if you want to, it was an interesting coincidence that all of us were male. Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to add something, Alex?
Yes, I think that gold collapsing Bitcoin talk thread really deserves a place in history because it did act as a nucleus to bring a lot of like-minded people together. And I think we should mention Andrew Stone's role in actually being the dynamic person to actually go ahead and do something and create a fork of Bitcoin Core version 12 and be prepared to maintain it and run it. And that was something we could get behind and actually create an organization to support. So he can't be with us this evening today for family reasons, but certainly his role in being the inspiration for the start of Bitcoin Unlimited from that thread we were all communicating does deserve to be noted at this time.
That's really amazing to hear. Yeah.
And also Peter Super, which is not here right now, because Andrew Stone was the one that started the avalanche, but Peter was and he still is a formidable resource and a coder and a free thinker. Like I really do think that is one of the unsung heroes of the crypto space, because nobody knows about him, but he did a tremendous work. Like he was the one that came up with the first innovation about block propagation that basically shattered the core narrative about the impossibility to propagate big block. The technology was called X-Thin, and then single-handedly, basically, he came up with this solution that reduced the propagation time of about 99%. Was like mind-blowing. We managed to also test it to the propagation of blocks across the China firewall. And then we had tremendous results also in that cases. And it was I'm really fond of those days. We were like really even though it didn't pan out like we wanted to, we for sure started a process, an avalanche, if you will, that we are still looking at the development of.
Yes, I completely agree. Our Peter Shipper's work on X-Thin and then our work as a team to implement and test that, I think really put Bitcoin Unlimited on the map and kind of kicked off the block size wars in a way, because like you said, the improvements were just so massive and it just shut down the core narrative that block propagation was a problem. And I remember at the time they were already censoring big block positions on the Reddit Bitcoin subreddit. But then we
Mhm.
were posting, our results from Exton, and there was just too much interest, so they couldn't, that they couldn't do it. They tried to censor it, but no, they finally had to let these posts stand. And I could tell the core guys were
Yeah,
pulling out their hair, just thinking, "Look, these guys have done really good work," and everyone sees it. So of course,
yeah,
core had no choice but to basically copy Exton. They rebranded
yes,
it Compact Blocks because
yeah,
they didn't want to give us credit. Uh, but really,
yeah.
it forced them to solve the block propagation problem in their own
Yeah,
way as
the,
well.
the yeah the idea was basically the same. Actually, they were their ideas were simpler because they removed some very useful things like the all the probabilistic work that we did to guess what was the most probable transaction to get included in a block. But like you said, they didn't want to get us credit, and then they write everything from scratch like they always do.
Yeah, the more I listen to you guys, the more I feel that there was no coincidence in connecting you. It was basically a destiny because you started as anonymous persons and now you're doing something for 10 years. So it's a really huge achievement. Okay, so Bitcoin Unlimited was founded because something didn't sit right, because you saw a bottleneck forming or a decision that could shape the ecosystem for decades. So, what was the major problem you saw with Bitcoin? How did you initially imagine tackling it or proposing a better solution?
Well, I guess I'd say, Sick Pig was talking about how we would all chat in the gold collapsing Bitcoin up thread on Bitcoin Talk. And back in 2014, I was very happy to be a passive observer. I like to, be like an armchair developer with Sick Pig and Andrew Stone and everyone else, and just kind of chat about economics, chat about technology, but not really get involved in the work because I thought the core devs were doing a great job. Gavin Anderson was at the lead, and I thought he had an awesome vision for Bitcoin that aligned with my vision. And it seemed obvious that we're just going to keep growing this network. The blocks are going to get bigger while more and more transactions, and then this thing is going to take over the world. I don't have to do anything. But but then this crazy idea came up that we should not grow the block size. We should stop it. So we should be limited at 7 transactions per second for the rest of time. And I was hoping that idea would just get flushed out as stupid, but it seemed that a lot of the core developers believed it. They wanted Bitcoin to stay small. They didn't want the block size to grow, and that's really I saw that as something that would kill Bitcoin's use as real money, as real electronic cash you could use for payments, and that's what made me personally want to get more actively involved in the development, and the rest is kind of history.
I think going back to the block size, that was my major issue after having learned about Bitcoin. It was really about a month later that I spotted a thread on Bitcoin taught by a guy called Jeweler, who was raising the issue that the 1 megabyte block size wasn't enough for serious adoption. And I had that thought myself, actually. And from what I read, it was the actual 1 MB was temporary, and it was originally 32 megabytes, which was the message size limit that had been put in. But Satoshi was a little bit worried about spam and bloating it, and especially as a lot of nodes were just home hobbyist nodes, and he didn't want them knocked off the network. And there was there was wide support from the original four contributors to SourceForge, Satoshi, Gavin Andreessen, Peter Wiley, and Jeff Garzik, had all spoken positively about raising the block size limit. And Peter Wiley actually came up with a figure of 100 megabytes as his suggested limit. And this was about March 2013. So I thought that it was in good hands myself, and was prepared to sit back and watch what happened. But then there was this strange mantra, a video produced by Peter Todd to keep Bitcoin free, and it was just a cartoon where they're arguing for the 1 MB. And most Bitcoin users, I suppose, even then weren't technical, and there were the concerns about maintaining decentralization. Of course, this was before Peter Schipper's work on shrinking blocks for propagation. And also before, I think, pruning was put in, where the blockchain on people's disk drives could be pruned after a certain number of blocks. So those changes made it possible for Bitcoin to handle much larger volumes, but the momentum in the Bitcoin community was to leave it as is, which really is a bit of a fatal error. And then, of course, Blockstream got founded. And Peter Wiley changed tune from supporting 100 megabyte blocks to supporting 1 megabyte blocks. And then it turns out that that Blockstream started to create its own side chains like Liquid, and even the Lightning Network, which, I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves now, but the actual fee income for transactions was being, the intention seems to me right from that early point to siphon it away from miners to these side chains and layer 2, and that actually affects Bitcoin's security, because going back to the white paper, the whole model of the geometric, I don't know, call it a progression or regression in block rewards, means that they have to be replaced with transaction fees. So Bitcoin, right from its very design, requires growing transaction fees, and capping the block at 1 MB was going to cripple its security model. And I think that was apparent to quite a few people, but our voices weren't being heard.
Yeah, the sad part of that period of time that we call the block size war was that it was a sad realization on my part that people could be very easily manipulated. Like even nerds, even people that are supposed to be like critical thinker and people that reason using first principles, were spending tons of hours arguing on the basis that was false. Like the main thing that I mean, the white paper was 9.9 pages long, don't recall, very short, very concise piece of art, and it was like, since the title, the message were very clear. That the system has to provide a solution to a problem. The problem is to let people to transact without the intervention or the intermediation of third parties. And this means that Bitcoin has to be useful to people. Saying that you need to keep it small in order to keep it decentralized, even at the expenses of the usefulness that actually was the initial ethos, or the initial reason for Bitcoin, was like pure madness. And people drink the Kool-Aid and say decentralization is the most important thing, which is not the case. Because if you are not useful, you're not going to I don't care if you are decentralized. I mean, if I can't transact with other people without asking permission to third parties, like it happens in Lightning Network or in Liquid or in some other weird solution that they come up with in the meantime, I don't care about centralization. I need to transact with people without asking permission to you, because whatever reason. So it was a very, very sad period of time. And it took me a while and a lot of time to understand that at times I thought I were entertaining like rational conversation with people, trying to, have an argument, a positive argument, like to decide, which ideas were better. But in reality, I was talking to people that weren't using rationality, critical thinking, and they were like a cult or something like that. And it took me a long while. And when I first grasped this, it was the moment that I decided to join the actual work of testing thing and becoming involved in the development, because this was, in my opinion, the most probably successful thing to win people over, to show people that we can do it the way we think. Anyway, yeah, it was just I digress, I guess. No.
No, I think that's really interesting. And I had a similar sad insight into, I guess, human nature, because,
Yeah,
like you said, who I thought were these independent, rational thinkers, it became clear that so many of them just bought into the dominant narrative. Like, I knew, that's human nature, especially if you're not technical. But back in the block size wars, I was meeting, professors of electrical engineering, PhDs in computer science, and we start talking, and they say, no, blockchains are fundamentally unscalable. 7 transactions per second, it just can't grow. And they believed it, but for no actual reason that they could
yeah,
articulate. And I mean, hearing that from from just a Bitcoin enthusiast who maybe he's a carpenter as his job is one thing, but hearing that
hmm
from someone has a PhD in computer science is
hmm
made me really sad. And I guess I still haven't recovered. I've kind of my
yeah,
opinion of humanity is permanently a little bit lower, just because I've seen how even at the
yeah,
highest levels of academia and education and expertise, many people still go with the dominant narrative rather than thinking for themselves.
Yeah, I really love your insights, and I know it's a sad story. Is there something you wanted to add, Salex?
Yes, I think in terms of what we wanted to achieve with Bitcoin is the scaling, obviously the larger blocks, and we didn't want to knock small nodes off the network, and that's why we came up with compressing blocks to try and maintain the decentralized. I know Andrea just said now that the decentralization is secondary, and it is. The freedom to transact is primary, but the decentralization is an integral part to make that happen. And
hmm
Bitcoin Unlimited has always been pro freedom, pro peer-to-peer transacting, but also pro decentralization. A lot of what we've done has been for that. And actually, another shout out to Peter Schipper with his changes. When Satoshi wrote the original Bitcoin code, he just wanted to get something out that would work. He'd spent a lot of time on it, but it really was a bit of a rat's nest. The C main was just one huge long thing, and it needed a lot of cleaning up. And I've compared it before. Say, consider like a map of Mumbai with all its little alleyways and everything, and a map of Miami. Well, what Peter Schipper has done with the Bitcoin Unlimited software is taken that original code and turned it from a map of Mumbai to a map of Miami. And so it is so much more efficient, so much more optimized, that the
yeah,
transactions that we've done just through home nodes across the Atlantic from just retail ISPs, we've benchmarked 40, 50, 60,000 transactions a second. The Bitcoin code was scalable right at the beginning. But we're getting ahead of ourselves again. But what's happened is, because Bitcoin has been limited, the transaction fees went really high in 2016 because the blocks were full. People paying $10, $20, $30 for a transaction, and that just drove everyone to start using altcoins. So probably the biggest boost for the
hmm
altcoin market in the last 10 years has been the Bitcoin blocks maxing out, and the fees have driven everyone away. This is the
mm
tragedy of it.
Yeah, some people say the small blockers didn't win the block size wars. The altcoins and Ethereum and the other coins won the
Yeah.
block size wars.
Yeah, it is a pity that it went the way it went, but I'm still I still have hope. Like I don't I say multiple times, I don't care the way we are going to achieve it, but as long as some project managed to pull it out, and it being set it up a system that set people free of third parties when transacting with each other, I'm good. Even if Bitcoin Core, for whatever reason, started now to revert all the stupid changes that they made, and then came up with a solution that scaled Bitcoin Core to like whatever humongous amount of transaction per second, I will be more than happy. Like I'm not searching for glory or ego boosting endeavor. Like I just want people to be free, and for me, this the necessary condition for that is that you have to have the freedom to transact with a peer without asking for permission to anybody.
The more I hear you guys speaking, the more I see some really nice quotes that we can put in our graphics and post them on our, because yeah, there's some real wisdom you're speaking, and I'm really happy that we have an opportunity to hear all of you speaking. And shout out to Peter Chipper from me as well. I'm really proud to be able to share space with him as long as that with everybody. He's not the most talkative guy, but I really enjoy spending as much time as I can with him. So yeah. Does anybody else wants to add anything, or should we move on?
I'm good.
Okay, let's move on. So as I was hearing you, so the scaling wars were really intense, emotional, and draining, but they also forged a lot of resilience, clarity, and technical direction. So after the scaling wars and shifting your focus towards Bitcoin Cash, how did that period shape Bitcoin Unlimited as an organization? What were the biggest lessons you took from that stage?
I will just say that Bitcoin Cash era was a very difficult era for us. I mean, the idea of creating a separate coin in order to achieve scalability, and that was Peter Risen's idea, and he created a BUIP for that. So we haven't actually mentioned BUIPs yet, but Bitcoin Unlimited is structured to have membership guidance over its activities, or in fact instruction over its activities through the BU improvement process. And I believe it was BUIP 066 that Peter Risen authored to propose a fork of the Bitcoin ledger, but with scalability. But unfortunately, the Bitcoin team at the time, Bitcoin Unlimited team, had various members in it that wanted to do things their own way, and particularly Amaury C. Shea. So he basically wound up leading the Bitcoin Cash split and creating the first client, and took away a lot of the momentum for scaling. But unfortunately, it was extremely poorly executed. The difficulty adjustment algorithm was ridiculous, where the block intervals were from seconds to many minutes. It just wasn't properly tested. So the Bitcoin Cash launch was a mess. And we found ourselves, I would say, that we almost snookered ourselves into supporting the Bitcoin Cash fork. And we went with it. We tried to make it work. We spent a couple of years trying to make it work. And I think that was the very most difficult part of our whole 10-year experience, was the work that we did with Bitcoin Cash, trying to get traction. And of course, it was just slammed on social media by everyone who wanted to stick with the 1 megabyte blocks in Bitcoin Core. So and the other problem with it, of course, is that security model is broken, because it's using the exact same mining algorithm as Bitcoin. So at any one time, some miner with a lot of hashing power could monkey with the Bitcoin Cash blockchain by censoring transactions and forking it, etc. So I think that's actually had a downward pressure on the Bitcoin Cash price all this time since 2017. Anyway, I'll hand over to someone else to add a bit more about that experience.
I guess I'd add that for a while. You're right that I don't, the way it was launched, I was not really happy with. But once Bitcoin Cash forked, I would say that I became on board and hoped, well, maybe Bitcoin Cash can become Bitcoin. Maybe it can flip BTC in price. And I think we actually got kind of close. Like, what was the highest BCH ever got? Like, was it like $4,000 when BTC was 20,000?
Yes.
It was up there for a bit. So I mean, it sounds silly to think it could flip it now, but there was a time when I think that path was a potential path the universe could have taken. Uh,
Yeah.
but it didn't take that path, and we kept. I kept working on BCH along with a bunch of other people, and then but so many things went wrong. Like that's when Craig Wright got involved, and and next thing you know, there was the split between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin BSV, which kind of made the whole forking thing seem silly because now suddenly there's three Bitcoins, and there was Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Diamond and Bitcoin Wood, or I don't know. And then later, Murray decides he wants to get a dev tax in his pocket, so he splits it again and creates eCash, and it quickly fell apart for me, and I think it lost the promise that it had right there at the beginning.
Yeah, it was another process that if you wanna take the positive side, that make us wiser, that make us grow in the like learning lesson the hard way. Like it was for me, it was a continuation. I was like naively thinking, okay, we were like fighting for 2 years more. I don't even recall the amount of time that we put in trying to steering the development of Bitcoin Core, and it, at a certain time, it was clear to me that there were no chance that we would, succeed in doing that. So I was really naively thinking that maybe forking was a good chance. And in the beginning, like Peter said, the economic dynamic, the ratio between BTC and BCH was not so bad, 25% of BCH was 25% of the value of one BTC, and then it could have done both way. Anyway, but the sad reality, the actual reality kicks in again, and then all the usual dynamics of cult tribalism, narrative, lack of rational thinking kicks in again, and we had another round of roller coasting, and then there were Craig Wright, there were Satoshi, there were all the things. It was a very difficult path to go through. Maybe necessary to go through it, but it was necessary to go through it to get where we are right now. But yes, it was also a very demanding process, very energy consuming, because when you realize that you are wrong, it always requires a lot of energy to cope with it, and then to get out of it something positive. Yeah. So this.
So what would you say that were the big lessons that you learned from that stage?
The big lesson that I learned is that I was convinced that by forking the community, the code, the chain, we would have been successful in isolating ourselves from the bad actors. But in reality, bad actors are everywhere and good people are everywhere, and you need to deal with it no matter what. There's no There's no way to escape those kind of dynamics, human dynamics, and especially when values is involved, where values as in money. As long as there is a pot of money on the table that has no clear ownership, it is a honeypot for, psychopath, conman, and you name it. We see it all. This is the thing that I learned the hard way that time.
Yeah, that's a really sad reality. Does anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say before the block size wars, I thought that the miners were probably the most important actors, and then maybe second is the community, using quotes, kind of the decentralized community of users. But my view now is the exchanges played a really important role in defining what became Bitcoin. Basically, when the fork happened, you know, Bitcoin went on, and everyone said, "Okay, this is Bitcoin Cash. This is a distinctly different coin." And I think really from that point we were lost. Like I don't think it was ever going to be Bitcoin looking back, or it would have been a very hard path to ever become Bitcoin from that point. So I think most people, lots of people are storing their money on exchanges. They're buying Bitcoin through exchanges. The exchanges kind of become the shelling point of defining like what reality in a sense. So like if the exchanges got on board with a big block fork and decided to call that Bitcoin, it would have won. No question in my mind. But they didn't, and that's why I lost.
That's really great insights. Do you want to add something, Solak?
Yeah, I'll just add that the most important lesson we learned from the Bitcoin Cash era is to be masters of our own fate. And that is where Nexa becomes extremely important, because that is the coin that we have our own software suite, that we manage our own contributors and our own decision-making process through the BIUIPs and other community input as to where it goes. So we're masters of our own fate, and we can try and make a success, which is what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. And we're really happy, much happier in our own environment than having to constantly fight with other teams who have completely different objectives working on the same coin. That's not really possible. That's the lesson I've learned.
I think that's really important, because every lesson learned is a lesson that will not be repeated. So I really love all your reflections on that period, and it brings a lot of clarity. I think for me it looks like it was a really complex and emotional time for the whole space, and I love hearing how it shaped your thinking, and this adds real insight. So fast forward to the next chapter, Nexa, our project that we're working on right now, a clean slate, new ideas, and the chance to build without all constraints. So, what was the original idea behind creating Nexa? And if you had a time machine and could go back to the early planning days, would you do anything differently? And by the way, I think that we might have Andrew Stone, the founder of Nexa, joining us soon. I really hope so. Yeah.
I think that he's probably the best person to actually answer this question, because just as he was the motivating force behind the founding of Bitcoin Unlimited, he's the motivating force behind forming Nexa. But I think we were all coming to the conclusion that we needed to have our own coin as well. But it's not intended to just simply be a version of, say, Bitcoin Cash with different branding. What's put into Nexa is just so many different improvements and software changes, lessons that we've learned over the last 10 years. And also the functionality to really try and replicate what Ethereum and Solana can do with their smart contracting capabilities is quite key. Preserving the UTXO model, and this is another thing, we should go back to January 2009 when Bitcoin was launched. Satoshi's genius, apart from the proof of work, the Merkle root and all these things that he put together to actually create crypto, was that he understood that the UTXO model is superior to the account-based model. But most of what would be called second generation coins like Ethereum, Solana, and many of the other big ones are all account-based. And this has big implications. It cripples privacy and it cripples scalability. And it adds to complexity. And they keep adding layer twos and things. You shouldn't have to have layer twos, Polygon, and all these other things added on to make the account-based model work. So the UTXO model is definitely the best model for crypto, and very few new coins are launched with that. But the other thing about money is that peer-to-peer cash is basically 20th century thinking. The 21st century is a much more sophisticated financial environment. It requires decentralized finance, machine-to-machine transaction interfaces with programmability of money is really important for the 21st century. So this is where Bitcoin has not evolved to cover this area, whereas Solana and Ethereum have. And that's where Nexa comes in. We have the most superior model, the UTXO model for crypto, but we also have the advanced features programmability of money that's required, plus the scalability. This is the motivation behind creating it. So Andrew, if he can join us, we'll be able to add to that.
Yeah, if Andrew is not able to be here right now, can anybody else step in?
Well, I could ask something. Like one thing that I was in the beginning was skeptical to start a new project. I saw it like another admission of failure, but later on I realized that it was not the right way to look at things. And then I used another lens, a lens that I've used before. When we started Bitcoin Unlimited in the beginning, what was the motivation? The motivation was to stop talk about things and to show that to argument without talking, but actually argument without coding, like providing tests, providing facts, providing proof that scaling was possible. And in a way, Nexa is a new incarnation of that attitude. Like all the things that we put on the plate right now are things that even if not as successful right now, even if not enough people are aware that they are there. Like there are ideas that could be a seed for new development, maybe taken by other people, like Tailstorm, like the hardware specialization that we are working on. There are tons of things, like the parallelization of the code that needed to be put it out there. And then unfortunately on BCH, it was very, very, very difficult to do it for the dynamics that were reigning on that project that we were mentioning before. Anyway, my main trigger to put effort in Nexa was that I wanted to get back to the original motivation I had to join Bitcoin Unlimited, which was to show that scaling was possible and is possible.
That's really great to hear. Does anybody else want to add anything?
I would repeat basically what Sickpig and Solek said. I have always believed that Satoshi got almost everything right. Proof of work is the right way, not proof of stake. Proof of stake is not money. Proof of stake is more like decentralized company. And the UTXO model is the only model that scales. The account-based models will always run into scalability problems. So I think Satoshi's platform was almost perfect, but he didn't have a very sophisticated scripting language. There was a bunch of stuff disabled. It is clear that he wanted it to be very expressive, but he removed a bunch of opcodes because he was worried about attacks. And then with Bitcoin Cash, it felt like when we were working on Bitcoin Cash, we were just trying to be a better Bitcoin. We basically, okay, let's just take Bitcoin, but fix the block size limit, and that's it. But then at a certain point, it became clear that Bitcoin Cash is not going to flip BTC, and it kept going down in price and going down in price and going down in price. And then at that point, I was like, well, why are we even sticking to this thing that we're just Bitcoin with a bigger block size limit? Well, now let's go crazy and let's be more experimental. The price is already 1/100th of Bitcoin. Let's try to make this as good as we can. And there was a bunch of friction from the Bitcoin Cash community, uh, and it was hard to actually implement the ideas we wanted to implement. So creating our coin allowed us to experiment more freely with what we thought was fixing all, basically optimizing or a ground up better Bitcoin from scratch, as it were.
Okay, that's really good. Is anybody else? Yeah, while we're waiting for Andrew Stone to join us, does anybody else want to say anything more?
I guess we can move on once Andrew get in the room. We could go back to his view on that matter.
Yeah, he's having some issues, so I hope he'll be able to resolve them soon. So now, when we look back, now let's look forward. I think that the next decade might be even more important than the last one. Where do you see Nexa in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you hope it becomes, both technologically and for the people using it?
Well, I'm happy. Oops,
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm happy to go on with that. Personally, I have huge hopes for Nexa. I think that it has incredible potential, but I have learned over the last couple of years just how difficult it is now to get a new crypto above the noise. There's just so many thousands of coins out there, and many of them are specialist coins doing things such as real estate tokenization or with like identity proof and things like that. So the challenge is to try and get a new coin bootstrapped into adoption. And there's a whole bunch of ways of trying to do that, and it takes money, and we're prepared to spend the money. But I'm happy to tell everyone here that we've got 10 years runway at the current burn rate to grow Nexa. So if you ask where it will be in 10 years, I really hope it's going to be a lot bigger. I think it will be a lot bigger. We can't make promises, but I'm not going to be giving up anytime soon. And I don't think the rest of the team are. But I'm just hoping that we're aiming to get in the top 100. That's my aim my goal at the moment, is to try and help Nexa get into the top 100 coins. And once we achieve that, then we'll start getting a lot more serious attention from the crypto, the big investors in the crypto community. So that's my goal, and I'm sure we'll do it within the next 10 years. We'll be in the top 100, and I hope that will be within a couple of years, to be perfectly honest.
I really love your passion. I really love your energy, and I 100% support and agree with all that you said. We are all here for the same goal, and we are not going easy on this. I think we're going all in on Nexa. Yeah. Anybody else wants to add anything?
Oh well, from my point of view, I share the positions that Andrew Solik says. What it really comes down to me is to test the boundaries, and to show to people that scaling is possible. I'm not saying that we are the only one that would be able to provide it, but I'm very happy to put effort in this endeavor in showing uh, to the rest of the planet of the crypto space that scanning is possible, and we are putting like real things, real project, real solutions to solve this quandrum that which is like the balance between scaling and decentralization. And I'm convinced that we are going to have all the tools of our at our disposal to get that puzzle solved without getting rid of both of those characteristics, like decentralization and scaling. All the thing that we in the beginning of the Nexa project, we were focusing on the solving of the trilemma, the famous problem raised by I guess was Vitalik Buterin, which I don't recall it correctly. He said that of scalability, decentralization, and what I don't recall the other part of the triangle. You have to drop one. You can't have all of them. You have to drop at least one. And then I'm pretty sure that we can get it, all of them, without dropping a single one, because of all the things that Peter and Andrew said. The UTXO model is the most scalable things that we have in the crypto space. The new technologies that we are testing, Tailstone, which is this hybrid between weak blocks and bobtail. All the effort that we are putting in setting up, specialized hardware to accelerate the validation time, the enhance the scripting engine of Nexa are all things that will lead us to potentially to have a solution for the problem that we state in the beginning, which is to provide a peer-to-peer electronic cash system for the world.
I love what you're hearing. Yeah, would like to hear you, Peter, as well.
Yeah, great points, SickPig and Solex. I guess I would say that I don't see any of the top coins other than BTC surviving long term. Ethereum can't win, in my opinion, because it's account based, and I think that applies to most of the other top coins too, or their proof of stake. So I think the long term winning coin will be UTXO, and it will be proof of work. So the way I see it playing out is either BTC gets its act together, or some new coin becomes the dominant coin, and maybe that new coin will be Nexa, and that's what we're working towards making happen.
Those are all great points. Does anybody else want to add anything?
Nope.
I will just add that I think 2026 is going to be an exciting year for Nexa, because we have our second hard fork, and that will bring in Tailstorm, and there's been great work on that from Peter Schipper, also Greg Griffiths, and Andrew's been helping with that as well. It's really an important change, actually, for a number of reasons, and Andrew and I were just talking about even the quantum resistance aspect, because the rate of improvement in quantum computing is really accelerating over the last couple of years, and it may well threaten the elliptic curve cryptography. So one of our changes to put in is to enable quantum resistance signatures. Falcon has been written by Peter Schipper in his testnet, So whether we go with Falcon or possibly dilithium, but probably Falcon, if it gets approved by NIST, then we will have an advantage with quantum resistance and also the halving in probably April time, which will relieve a lot of that downward pressure on the price from new coins being mined. So 2026 looks to be pretty promising in terms of what we can do and where we'll head.
Those are really, really great points. And I agree with all of them. I know that everybody is fully committed into making Nexa the best project there is. And I know how everybody's pushing really, really hard, and that we are working on different solutions that are going to bring us on top of many different coins. And yeah, everybody's doing their part. We are really a strong team, and I believe that we're going to push Nexa to the place that it belongs to. And I share the opinion that 100 top coins for Nexa is a must. So I think that these 10 years were a long journey, and every long journey has moments that test you. So times when things get political, stressful, or simply exhausting. From the scaling wars to technical hurdles, each of you has lived through periods that weren't easy at all. These moments often define a team just as much as victories do. So my question for all of you is, what was the hardest or most challenging moment in the BU or Nexa journey for you personally?
This is a big one, I guess. And uh, the most challenging moment, um, oh, I wouldn't want to be, I want to sound like superficial, but in crypto there is there is always challenging moments waiting for you down the road. But for me personally, it was like the time where I decided to dedicate a lot more work and time to the project, trying to make it scale, like trying to steer the development of Bitcoin through a path that I saw more fitting to the initial requirements laid out in the Bitcoin white paper. There was a moment that I say to myself, if you're not going to do it, you are going to regret it. Like there's no other, you know, every small effort counts, and then maybe yours won't be the decisive one, but for sure will help to gather the critical mass that we needed back then to try to scale the thing. And I'm still convinced that that challenge was worth engaging with, even though the outcome wasn't like the one that I wanted to, but I accepted the actual outcomes, and then and it's facets. Not everything was dark. Like there were a lot of good things coming out of that, both at the individual level and then at, in my opinion, at the community level.
That's very good to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Sigpig. Uh, Anybody else wants to add something?
I mean, my take is similar to Sick Pigs, really. I think it's probably a common theme with most big blockers who've been around since the beginning, I guess. It's just a sort of dealing with the sort of sadness that it didn't necessarily have to be this way. Like, I thought Gavin was doing a great job, and it seemed like development was very efficient. There was a great mechanism for the good ideas to percolate to the top and then eventually get implemented. and it seemed everybody kind of it was a great feeling at the time because you felt like there's all these brilliant people, everyone's cooperative but still objective, and we can still debate, but we're rational. The best ideas get put forward, and we're working so hard to build peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world, and it was fantastic. And then it all broke down after the block size wars, and just dealing with the fact that that community, that wonderful community of brilliant people, it is gone, or it's kind of scattered into so many different pieces, and there's just so much effort being done by so many different groups, and there's no coordination. Other groups don't even know what's going on. So much money is being spent, so many human engineering hours are being put forth, and I think so much of it is just going nowhere. Like take Lightning Network for example. Probably like $1 billion of engineering has gone into that, and it's not going to go anywhere. Like if you had, like if Gavin was in charge and he could direct $1 billion of engineering, like all the problems would have already been solved. So
Yeah.
it's sad for me to think about how much more efficiently it could have gone.
Yeah, the worst thing about Lightning is that we knew it already in the beginning. Like everything that all the critiques that were laid out, like in the very beginning of Lightning Network, like I would say, like in the next 2 or 3 months since the publication of the white paper of the Lightning Network, are still valid and would haven't be enough to deem the project dead on the water, like dead on arrival, whatever you want to call it. And still years later they are still waiting for the next 6 weeks or whatever it was, 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't know what is the trademark that they use. And yeah, it's super weird. And the amount of talent, like, siphon it away from actual and useful development that went toward and is continuing to go toward Lightning Network is mind blowing.
Yeah, I think just looking back at what was the most challenging moment, I mean, there were always challenges, but I think the most depressing thing, and we're almost at the anniversary of that, I think it was 15th of November 2018 when Bitcoin SV forked off from Bitcoin Cash. And I think at that point, it proved to me that what we were trying to do was fairly pointless. And that kind of feeling, although I persisted in doing what I could to help the organization and to help scalability for the Bitcoin model, it was really only the initiation of Nexa that has revitalized my focus since then. Because again, we're masters of our own fate. So I think the lowest moment was that November 2018 Bitcoin SV split. And not only did they split, but they also tarnished Satoshi's vision as well, which Peter and I came up with. They hijacked that.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Which was actually a great catchphrase, and now I can't even use it because
it was a great catchphrase. We should have trademarked it because we created that, we owned it, and they just trashed it, and now it's just a joke.
It is, unfortunately. So that's sad. But yeah, we're into a new era. That's my message. We're upbeat. We're not talking about what could have happened. We can talk about what will happen. That's my message.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. Very good points. We should move forward. So, is there a specific moment, decision, or achievement from the last 10 years that you are especially proud of? It could be technical, personal, or something the community might not even know about.
I think we already talked about the accident. I think I had to work on accident and Peter Schipper's work, and then our work as a group to disseminate that out to the broader community. I'm really proud of that. I think that gives us an important place in cryptocurrency history. And then I'm also proud of our work just rallying the community and organizing the various conferences we organized in Arnhem, Tokyo, Italy, San Francisco during the block size wars problems to kind of build community and work towards the big blocker future of peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Talking about one conference that it's not that I'm particularly fond of, but it's just a testimony of the fact that we really do put a lot of effort in trying to get the thing rolling. We had a conference back in pre-COVID, was back 2018 or 19, about instant transactions, where a lot of bright people, even old many was there, share their ideas on how to make instant transaction, which was a synonym for unconfirmed transaction, secure to make payment in face-to-face situation where the timing is an essence. And then it was there has to be still the videos of that conference on YouTube somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you have a few hours or maybe just 1 hour to just go through and sampling the videos of the talk, it was like top-notch research, like the Almany speech, the Peter's speech. Even were there the XT guys were there. Don't recall the name, but everything was like top notch. Very good research. Very good like idea to solve problems that would make this peer-to-peer cash system more robust that was initially thought of. And then there are a lot of other examples, but this one comes to mind. But let's say that I'm proud of all those kind of things that we put together that can be exemplified by this conference I mentioned about instant transaction.
I totally agree. It was a great event, and it was great to have so many people come together to share what you said was really world class research on making instant transactions possible.
And if, now that it comes to mind, if I could make a detour about how it's not like that I want to praise the Bitcoin Unlimited thing. I just want to make people aware of the fact that back then people on both sides were clever. For example, Omany, which is an anonymous developer that we had the honor to work with, managed to find out a bug in the Bitcoin Core in the Bitcoin Core client that were live on the network that would let you crash the node at will, and even worse, to counterfeit Bitcoin, meaning going over the 21 million like holy threshold. And it was a Bitcoin Unlimited developer, and then find out the bug while working on the code, and then the code that we share with Bitcoin Core, and then this is another thing that I'm really proud of having worked with very bright people, and how many, and Peter Chipper, Peter Risen, Andrew Stone, everybody that I get in touch with along those years were like in a lot of ways very good people and very capable people.
Do you want to add something, Alex? I think that's
Yeah,
really...
yeah. I think more than a specific moment, I'm just proud over the last 10 years to have worked with a group of people and continue to work with a group of people who've maintained their integrity that entire 10 years, and principles, especially over the importance of personal freedom and liberty and what crypto can do to maintain those personal freedoms. Just being part of that group where no one has mysteriously reversed position or gone rogue, that we've all held true to the principles, and we're still working together to try and make things better. And the bigger fight's still ahead, actually. The fight with, say, central bank digital currencies and the digital identities that they want to bring in. If those are combined, we get that Orwellian future. So the battle is largely ahead. Block size wars was one thing, but we need to continue to grow the crypto space and have what I call private crypto, or the crypto that, like Nexa, Bitcoin, Ethereum, which are decentralized. They need to prevail for the world's money, not central bank digital currency. So that's the battle ahead, and I'm proud to be part of a group who's part of that, pushing back against that.
Wow, that was really meaningful to hear. Yeah, I think that these highlights often get overlooked, but they are the moments that remind everybody why years of effort and dedication were worth it. And I think that BU as a group, as Sigvig already said, is full of brilliant engineers and developers, but firstly and foremostly, I would say that it's full of very, very good people that are looking for a much bigger picture than the majority of the crypto space that we are currently in, unfortunately. So we are moving on to our last question of the day. So I think that Bitcoin Unlimited and Nexa would be here where they are without the people around us. Developers, miners, supporters, believers, and everybody who stuck around through all the wins and all the chaos. A 10-year anniversary is the perfect moment to send a message to them. So if you could share one message with the Bitcoin Unlimited and Nexa community today, something personal, what would you tell them? This can be a simple thank you, something they can be hopeful for, or simply something from the heart.
I guess for me, it's just to to keep that big original picture in mind, that we're like, what we're doing here is we're trying to preserve the people's right to transact, which is fundamental for human freedom. And just never, when you get depressed about the price or depressed about some arguments about block size, just never lose sight of what we're really fighting for here, what the stakes really are, and how important money is for society, and how critical the ability to freely transact between people is, to preserve our freedom.
Thank you, Peter.
I
Sigfig
agree
or Solak?
100%. I agree 100%. Like the most basic freedom, is the one that lets you transact peer to peer without third parties. Without that, you can't survive. There's no other way around it. And then the privatization of money, which is actually what is happening right now with CBDCs, the central bank digital currency, with credit cards, payment processor, is basically removing the last bastion of freedom when it comes to value transaction at the peer-to-peer level, which is cash, and then substituting it with intermediate relationship, where your ability to buy things, to buy anything, by also the service of a lawyer, if you are, if you get sued for not meaningful reasons, you could win it very easily at times, but you have to be able to pay for the right lawyer. And if you can't do it because the government decide that you can't use your money in the bank for whatever reason, you have not you don't have the freedom to defend yourself, which is one of the basic rights that we are supposed to have. But as we said before, everything is subordinated to the possibility, the freedom to transact with other people without asking for permission to anybody.
Thank you, Sigpig. Solex, would you like to say something?
Yes, I just want to reiterate the message that next year is going to be really positive for Nexa, and that is what we're all going to be working for. We're not going to be going away anytime soon. The team is the largest it's ever been right now, so we have a huge number of people doing work. There's a lot of projects that are going to come online during the year, and the future is extremely bright, really, for both for Nexa, but also for crypto in general. And I know that there are battles ahead, but my personal message is I think we could win long term. That's my personal view.
I think that everybody here shares the same message, and thank you. So I really want to thank everybody. There are no more questions after this one. So I think that tonight wasn't just a space, it was a decade compressed into stories, memories, and visions for the future. Listening to Solak, Sigpig, and Peter reflects on the past 10 years remind us how much passion, conviction, and pure persistence it takes to build anything meaningful in this industry. We looked back at where things started, the challenges that shaped us, the ideas that sparked whole new paths, and the belief that carried this group through every high and low. And we also looked forward toward Nexa, toward the next decade, toward everything that still lies ahead. To everyone who joined us, thank you for being a part of this journey. To the BU founders and builders, thank you for the last 10 years and for the next 10. So here's to the work that's being done, the work that's still ahead, and to a community that's stronger than ever. So I want to thank everybody once again. Have a great evening, and thank you for celebrating this milestone for us.
Thank
With
you,
us
everybody.
together.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was a
Bye,
pleasure.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Bye.